The Edge of Tomorrow is an unfiltered journey into the remarkable minds of the people shaping the future of technology and its impact on humanity. This show isn't just about gadgets and trends, it's about the humanity behind the innovation. Together, we explore the big questions. How does technology reshape our values, communities, and sense of purpose? What lessons can leaders draw from these transformations to create a more inclusive, ethical, and impactful future? The Edge of Tomorrow is more than a show. It's a journey to discover what lies ahead and how we can all navigate the challenges and opportunities of a world driven by rapid innovation. Our goal is simple: to make life more meaningful, leadership more impactful, and the future brighter for everyone. In every episode, Dr. Martha sits down with some of the world's most visionary leaders, pioneers, and thinkers to uncover untold truths, unlearned lessons, and profound insights about how the technologies of today are redefining the world of tomorrow. Welcome to The Edge of Tomorrow with Dr. Martha Boeckenfeld.
Very warm welcome, Cara. I'm so super excited having you here today. One of the top visionaries also globally. You have a huge background in corporate, but now you are the Executive Vice President of Technology and Innovation and Portfolio Officer of Capgemini for Europe. So a very, very big role. But what really amazes me more that you're also the G100 chair for humanity, tech, and innovation. So this is not only a huge role, but also a big signal. You are an author. I've seen you are you have been contributing to a best-selling book, Woman Making a Difference, #1 bestseller. So there's much more to say about you. But first of all, very warm welcome. I'm really honored to have you with me today.
Thank you, Martha, and equally, it's such a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for having me.
And thanks for sharing your deep insights. And with that, we want to immediately dive in deeper and want to go into the big question a lot of people ask. And you have a fantastic quote a couple of weeks ago. You said that AI is an accelerator. A lot of people are fearing we are being replaced. We have superhuman intelligence coming up. And how do we make sure, or how can we express, and where do you see, a lot of questions at the same time, but where do you see that we as humans can get the superpowers from AI?
Well, let's shine some light on this. So I was reflecting a little bit on the thought-provoking post that you shared as the run-up to today's discussion, and it was talking about the play of light. And I would start really by saying that AI isn't what we all should fear, but staying in the dark is. I really see the possibility of AI to help us see what we could never see before. To be honest, I've never been more excited. I think this is the electricity of our generation. I've never been excited than this time that we are facing. We see things moving already at an exponential rate. In fact, I often say that the speed of possibility is already outpacing the speed of preparation. So we see in 2025, AI has PhD level intelligence in math and science. Agents are performing real world tasks already. According to Mark Zuckerberg, if you listen to some of his talks, he says we'll have operational agentic software engineers. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, says that humanoids will transition from the research environment to factory floors. And the next wave of AI is physical AI. And if you've seen any of Jensen's talks, or I've seen him recently in person this summer, he loves his robots, and robots that can reason about the world. We're already seeing humanoids in the space of nuclear and defense. Computational performance is going to continue to double every 9 months, and the prices and also the energy is going to collapse by 10 times every 6 months. So it's all moving so fast. But I think the key here is, and Martha, as you started the conversation, It's not about replacing humans or human wisdom. It's about enhancing and amplifying it. We all will need to learn how to augment ourselves with AI. So a question that I often ask is, what is the biggest challenge that we face? And I really believe that it's not about the next breakthrough in technology, but it's about the next breakthrough in our behavior. So you might not expect me to ask that question coming from a woman in tech, but I really believe that, in terms of how we choose to learn, to adapt, to trust, to embrace AI and amplify our own values rather than the fear of being replaced by it. This future isn't just about the AI, it's about a human transformation. And it's going to need each and every one of us. So at this point in time, what I'm seeing is a tremendous overestimation of the short-term disruption and a tremendous underestimation of the long-term uplift in human capabilities. So I fundamentally believe that we're going to get better at using AI. And as we do, more people will be needed and not less. We see organizations now that are reducing by the hundreds, by the thousands. But I fundamentally believe that we're going to need more people because the complexity of the world's problems that we're facing today will become more solvable and they're going to become more visible. So a few
in your Cara, in your work, because you work very, very closely with C-level leadership, and
Yeah.
you advise them not only on strategy but also on execution. How do you see, or what are when you say like the big five, where C leaders can implement, how they can implement AI with the thought you just had, that it's not only about mastering the best AI tools, but what values do you have and how does it translate? Can you give us some examples from maybe also different areas, different segments where you work with C leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe just a few short examples in that space, and taking a bit from some of the healthcare or life sciences background. So for instance, where we see AI helping to detect breast cancer before radiologists would have caught it. It's not about then the exam itself and the radiology, but it's the radiologist who is delivering the care, the compassion, and the context. Another example is in AI triage systems in emergency departments. So we see that they reduce wait times by 30%. And that's going to enable nurses to be able to focus on the more critical part of the role, which is human reassurance. So these are examples that just show that the closer that we get in the value chain to the person who is at the end customer interface, or in this case, the patient interface, the more human they need to be. And the AI can enhance those people with better insights so that they can make even better decisions and provide even better care or service. There are other personal stories, in fact, through my own board work, work that I have done at Easy, which was recently acquired by Johnson & Johnson Vision. And it's an AI-powered vision test where you use your computer to do an eye exam at home. And tools that I have helped to build, like Seeing AI, an app you can download from the App Store. I've seen the absolute joy and freedom that have been experienced by persons with visual impairments who could finally conduct an eye exam at home or shop on their own in a store for the first time, feeling safe and feeling independent. So independently being able to do that because of the AI augmentation that this brought to their lives. And this is really about the human uplift.
I think you make one point which is really very important, and which sounds a paradox, but it's not. So you said that AI enhances the human part of us, and we have, with your guidance right now, a couple of examples when doctors, nurses have more time with patients because AI helps them with there's plenty of administration, which doctors have to bear with. I have a couple of doctors in my family, and it's always the most what they complain about, and that they can't be anymore with patient. And also everything is quite, when you look at Da Vinci methods and so on, it's available, but it's very, very expensive. So the other part is we have to make sure that this is more accessible to everyone, that things are getting really more scalable. And there are plenty of examples where you can now recently we had doctors also remotely operating. This kind of stuff is really, really fantastic in tech. And I think these are the kind of examples we should take also into account for people who fear and are concerned what AI does. But not to forget, as you said as well, a lot of people are losing their jobs. And it was interesting to see Elon Musk. I'm sure you have seen that in the recent interview. He said, we won't have poverty anymore. We have abundance for all, with all the robotics and everything. But how would that work? Because right now we have a currency which is money, in all sorts of form, including digital, and we work, and then we can pay. So if we don't work anymore, then a lot of people are concerned. How do nice to have access, but what is a mechanism for the societal transformation that you mentioned?
Yeah. Well, I think in my view, the surprising shift that we're going to see that impacts us as humans and the human effort. So if you first consider that by 2030, 50% of the decisions will be made by AI, and the other 50% will be assisted by it. So AI is going to rewrite the rhythm of human effort. We're coming from this era, and you described it from a monetary perspective, but we're coming from this era where productivity has been favored. We've come out of the industrial revolution, and where we were really looking at factory-based work, and what was being valued was our productivity. This has been favored and most valued, and it involved our medium brain, really, the administrative type of work. But in the intelligent era, we're going to need more deep thinking, more recovery time and space to reflect, more empathy and more meaning. And I believe that the new luxury in the way that we define that is going to be in becoming even more human and having even more meaningful human connection. We're going to crave it, and we're going to yearn for it. And I think that that's directionally where we're going. Yeah.
I discussed her. I had lunch with a singer, and she thinks, not in big events, but in small places like you have seen in the Middle Age, yeah. So where you go, like Clara Schumann, for example, and she was very concerned about what AI would do to her job. I said, they will love you because this is so exclusive. You give something in person. And that will be even more valuable than anything else we can give. And what you mentioned, the empathy, the emotional context is much higher. But another point you mentioned, which I think is, we have seen that in science fiction. You said in 2030, AI will take 50% of decisions for us. So obviously, when AI takes decisions for us, what does it mean also for humanity? We as humans are not always perfect. And we have seen also in science fiction scenarios that because of that, AI decides to also say, or certain things we shouldn't do, and certain humans might not be valuable anymore. So how do we deal with that? And how do we shape AI and get it into a direction where AI is really for everyone with all our human flaws?
Yeah. I think you're so right. The AI's light is very powerful, but someone of us needs to decide where to shine it. And I think this is where we get into values, and the values that we adhere and enjoy, they have to be able to scale with the technology. So I see three paradigms that are emerging. And recently I was also enjoying a talk from the CEO of DeepMinds. And there are three paradigms that I started to reflect on that I think are really important. The first is I would call the infrastructure mindset. This says basically we're going to need bigger data centers, more compute power, more space for, more GPUs, more CPUs. And yes, but the power without direction is just an acceleration without purpose. So for instance, we have massive compute models that are trained without ethical guardrails. And these have already produced some pretty harmful outputs, not because they lack the power, but because they lacked values. The second paradigm, which leans a little closely to what we were just discussing in terms of the creativity, is the scientists that have designed the models that we're even using today, and the scientific curiosity mindset, if you will. I think that AI's real power is in helping us understand ourselves, understanding the universe, our biology, our behaviors, our relationships. It's helping humanity tackle the mysteries that have always escaped us. So if you think about, DNA structures, the AI models predicting protein structures, solving mysteries that used to take decades and decades. Climate models that are mapping patterns with immense accuracy, over 90% accuracy. Astronomers that are using AI to identify exoplanets and that hidden sort of telescope noise that we can't really see. The ecologists that are decoding underground tree communication networks. The neuroscientists that are using AI to reconstruct images from human thoughts. These are using AI as a lens into the universe, but also into ourselves. Why does my cat meow when I come home from work? What is the sound of the dog's bark? And what does that all really actually mean to us? And the
We
third
even have AI
paradigm,
now translating some of the animal voices.
I truly believe that we will decode that. We will understand the cat's meow and the dog's bark, and I'm really looking forward to that because I have a cat that meows a lot, and I really would love to know what she's trying to tell me. The third paradigm that I'm seeing is this data reality. The fact that we've only digitized about 8% of the world's data. I look at some companies that are sitting on hundreds of years of data that they haven't digitized yet. And the question is, do we care what happens 159 years ago, or does the last 10 years really matter the most? But even still, with that 8%, we can't even use that effectively yet. Not enough. So think about that. The EHR systems across Europe that still can't talk to each other. Public services that still miss obvious patterns. The justice systems that still have blind spots, the healthcare data that's still so fragmented and incomplete, a server under every surgery table, not connected. So do we need the other 92% that we haven't digitized yet? Or do we need to better understand the 8% we already have? For instance, in maternal health, most global data sets that still today underrepresent women, and AI could reduce the maternal mortality significantly if it was trained on representative data. But the reality is it was trained on the data of men. And so we have to think about the real values that are driving some of these paradigms that I'm describing.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's very important that even though or in particular, because AI might decide 50% of what our life is about already in 2030, that's already very, very, very close. We are end of 25, so it's only 5 years from now, or even less. What would you say are these values? You mentioned ethical guardrails, but for you, when you think about the golden rule, what should AI consider in your mind?
Yeah. So AI and adopting AI is not just a technology decision. It's what I would call a whole system transformation. I think that this shows up in 3 critical areas, which involve our culture, it involves our people and process, and it involves, of course, technology. So it starts with culture. As an example, in life sciences, researchers are shifting from doing much of the discovery work to letting AI lead with the insights, the patterns, and the hypotheses. And the role, therefore, of the scientist is going to evolve from doing the work to directing and deciding. That's the AI that's directing and people deciding what to do. So in this space, it's essential to design for inclusion at the start and not as an afterthought. So as we look at the evolution of culture and the values that we place there, then there's the people and process. In automotive, for instance, AI agents are already becoming embedded across roles in organizations in the automotive sector. They're coordinating the design, they're doing the quality checks, they're looking at the production planning. And so what used to be very linear and manual is now immensely interoperable, it's collaborative, and it's increasingly autonomous. And then the third area in terms of this whole system change is related to the technology. So for instance, in supply chain, that needs to become much more agile. The leaders in this space are moving from very static, monolithic platforms to things that are more adaptive and modular. Forecasting that doesn't rely on deterministic models alone, but on agent-enabled tools that work more probabilistically to predict and respond to the disruption that's happening through geopolitical cases and so on. So that whole system change means that we're doing more than just deploying the AI. It means actually reshaping how we work, how we collaborate and innovate together. And so it's not just the adoption of the AI, but really leading that transformation. So your question about the golden rule to me is build nothing about people without people.
Yeah.
And I think ethically,
this is very, very, very important, because as both of us have seen also working with corporates, some are just, these are the super fancy AI tools, let's push it and it will solve everything for us. It's a magic bullet. But if people are not part of it, it's not only the design, but the workflows, the organizational setup. And if my coworker is an AI agent, then how do I deal with it? So whole organizations have to change. So that's absolutely for sure. I think
and
this is
historically, Martha, we just have not been very good at that. How
yes.
many, experiments and examples do we have where solutions, drugs, capabilities were built for instance, for women without women's involvement? And so this notion of build nothing about people without people applies absolutely in the intelligent era as well. I think there's an ethical line here too that we should not cross, and that is in using the data in ways that people can't understand or consent to it, and particularly in the healthcare space.
So we have to also, I mean, healthcare is one of the most exciting areas in my view, and how we can create what you have described also with automotive as not only AI, but as with digital twins in the factories. You can use the same in AI. You can use your own digital twin, and I've seen that also in Switzerland for some athletes. It's amazing if you have your digital twin. So that also would help to cross the bridge for women, because there is no difference in the sense of, if I create a digital twin, it's my copy. It's what I am, what my body tells me, and you get much more control. So I think the art of the whole transformation is also the art of education. So education is one of the biggest areas in my view where we have to do much more to educate people. With all the examples you have mentioned, they are not known, I would say, to many people when they look at AI and know about ChatGPT. And the other part is, we see more and more in ChatGPT, people are looking for guidance, and 90%, according to the last Stanford report, is seeking for personal help for therapies. That also tells us something about society. We have more mental health issues, and that's driven by what we enjoy and find so beautiful. There's a huge gap we see for us. We are striving on this wave of innovation and love it, but we need to make sure that we don't leave people behind. So how do we make sure, in your view, also that we get more inclusiveness? And you are one of the, obviously, fighter, you can say, for also including women on board tables and other tables in science, in tech. And from an execution point of view, when you talk to C-level leaders, how do you make sure that those C-level leaders understand? Because there's always a lot of talk of quota of 30%, 40%, but how does it feel and live in those corporates you are dealing with?
Yeah. So I think you asked the really the right question here in terms of who chooses where AI lights is shining. And so if we think about women, minorities, underrepresented groups that aren't in the room, the light will shine unevenly. Women need to code themselves into the future. I like this notion that data is history in numbers. So if we think about that, data is history in numbers. When history has not always been fair or complete, when history has been erased or is undocumented or is misrepresented, the data will be too. And so, examples, and we talked about, even before the AI era, if you will, or the early crash test dummies that were male centered, using male specifics, to test the impact on the body that led to higher injury and mortality rates in women. And these are things that we simply can't repeat in AI. So I think that there are 3 areas that I would say, number one, representation in creation. So every algorithm reflects the room where it was built. So as an example, there was a fintech AI system that was trained only on male financial behavioral behavior that systematically denied loans to women entrepreneurs. So once women joined that design team, as I mentioned, the inclusion needs to be built into the beginning of the development. When women joined that design team, the model was rebuilt and the approval parity emerged within weeks. A second piece is that I look at data equity as a civil right. Until the missing 92% of the world is better represented, not saying we have to get all of it digitized per se, but we have to get more of the world's data, of the history represented. We can't really claim fairness until more of the data has been represented. So we know, historically in medicine, for instance, women have been excluded from clinical trials. And so the AI is being trained on incomplete physiology, and it's going to produce incomplete care. And the third piece that I would say is around empathy. And I think that this is an innovation skill. So innovation really starts with listening to the lived experiences that we have. And I think what the AI is going to do is really illuminate our deeper understanding of mortality, of our identity, of the questions about love, about belonging, and those really deeply human conditions. So, a tech team that was once designing an app for autism caregivers, they looked at breakthrough features only after spending weeks upon weeks listening to parents and therapists. And so, I really look at that and say, the better that we understand the human condition and involving empathy as an innovation skill, that's something we can actually start to measure and we can start to see in the results. And so I think a practical step in that is to consider how we audit. How will we know when the data isn't biased anymore? And do we recognize now the real representation of all individuals in the solutions? And we could even introduce bias audits as being as common as doing financial audits when we look at the deployment of AI. How well is it testing and standing up to the tests of bias?
Because I think one important part you mentioned is this kind of transparency we have to get. So what is it's always the input determines the output. That was always the case even before AI, and we have a lot of challenges with the input. And if we go even beyond, when you test the different models that you mentioned, DeepMind, ChatGPT, Mistral, it's very interesting. You ask the same question also in the political field, and all of the 3 will answer differently because they're kind of shaped by the culture in the US, ChatGPT, Mistral more Europe, and you can really test this. I have done this, and it was sort of an eye-opener also for me. It's not only the typical bias, but they become ambassadors, they become culture of, or they represent the culture they are built in. So also this is kind of geopolitical political question and what we call diplomacy in technology is getting even more important, because we can't have values differing when it comes to human values. We can have different views and different political opinions. But stats, by the way, as you know, also show that the more women we have in representing in politics, the better and higher the peace factor is. Yeah, so there's another factor, obviously, where women have a huge contribution and bring to the table something which is quite different. And this kind of statements, I think it's not statements, it's underpinned by data, and it's important to look at this and how can we use AI to change this. And coming to what AI and technology changes, what would you say is, in your view, if someone sits with you today, has no idea about AI, no idea about robots, and says, wow, this is a lot. What is the one thing you believe is disrupting my entire life?
Is disrupting my entire life. I think if I look at from an industry perspective, in terms of what's really shifting here, without a doubt for me, it's the healthcare environment. And it's not about the tech itself, but it's actually about the fact that it's going to be transformed in a way that's not just technical, but it is emotional, it's behavioral, and it's psychological. So for instance, I've recently been seeing some experiences about hospitals where AI powered fall detection reduced the nightly falls that patients were experiencing by more than 60%. And I know that even as my dad was aging, I installed, so I'm the IT department at home, at my parents' home as well. So I installed sensors so that a little alarm would go off if he fell, so that he could get help faster. And so giving patients, elderly patients, more safety, and then nurses more peace of mind, or family in this case, more peace of mind. I think that these are going to be areas that are fundamentally going to improve the human condition. Let's think about the hospital room of the future. I recently had an opportunity to sit down with colleagues at Philips, and we're looking at leveraging AI for predicting patient deterioration hours in advance, so that we can, doctors can get on top of what's happening, using sensors to monitor pain without wires. Again, if I just think about this recent, we recently lost my dad, and seeing him laying in a hospital room completely connected to cables and wires, it was just heartbreaking. But imagine being able to monitor pain without wires. You talked about digital twins earlier. Imagine being able to simulate treatment options rather than testing on human or animal, as an experiment. Imagine real-time vitals being integrated into one intelligent dashboard, and that didn't have to necessarily be at the patient's bedside, but maybe it's something you want to monitor from home or someplace else. Imagine automated medication checks that reduce errors and look at the conflicting medications customers may get. And down to the almost simple things. But if you think about going into a hospital room with those bright lights, adjusting the temperature, the light, the noise, freeing, clinicians from all the admin to offering more of a human presence at the bedside. And of course, for families, just receiving that really transparent compassion and compassionate updates. We've seen examples with AI-driven stroke diagnosis systems that are reducing the treatment time up to 40 minutes. And so in a stroke treatment, as we say, time is brain. And this saves lives, it saves mobility, it saves speech. So that's not just about the tech that's changing healthcare, but it's fundamentally changing human destiny. And that's what I think is, for us all, where we even move away from, hospital to home, that I think is going to benefit humanity. And it is an area of the industry that is also currently the slowest to adapt, sees the biggest risks of migrating into cloud and digitization, and the fear that some doctors have that AI may replace their jobs, which I don't think it will. But again, only today we're looking at 5% of surgeries being conducted by robots. So
Yeah.
there's such a long way to go in this space.
And we need the doctors, as you mentioned before, to train and to help and to have a holistic view. But thanks a lot, Cara, for also sharing your very personal experience, and my sincere condolences. I know it's these situations are very hard, and being in hospital, I've had a family member also in UCI, so it's not a nice environment. It's never a nice environment, but we could do so much more with the technology we have right now.
Yeah.
So it's just a question of how do we get it there. So I completely 180% agree with you. And luckily, now I don't need sensors at home because I have the Apple Watch for my mother, and
Yeah.
that's this kind of innovation and how it's really developing. So when she falls, we have immediately a notification. That is so important. So the big shift, if I may say, is really in your personal life, and in you become. Everyone is going back to what it means to be human, and we are also digitized, and we're all spending so much time on Zoom, but the real value will come from being present and helping people. But we have these beautiful tools, which can help us to change and to create abundance for all people. We have that. There's nevertheless there's one big question, which is big tech. Big tech is driving a lot of the developments. You have mentioned NVIDIA, we have Elon Musk, we have Mark Zuckerberg. And in the worst case scenario, maybe they all do good, as Elon Musk now says he wants to create abundance for all, like Peter Diamandis always said. But how do we make sure also we have C leaders involved, we have visionaries involved, we have government involved, we get all the people we have on this planet who lead and guide together to push for humanity and really creating abundance for all.
Yeah. Well, I think as we look at preparing ourselves for this new era, this intelligence era, we have to recognize that this shift toward a more autonomous organization, and this fundamentally human transformation, it's not just about transforming the operations. It's really fundamentally going to redefine what it means to work, to lead, and to belong. And I think that last piece there is important because it's quite profound. The psychological, the social, the behavioral, the emotional implications of transitioning to more autonomous organizations is going to be enormous. And that's where I mentioned, at the start, I think we're significantly underestimating kind of the long term of all of this. So, some of the numbers we talked about in the next decade, even in the next 5 years, 50% of organizational decisions could be made by AI and not by humans. So that means new standards for accountability, for fairness, and for trust. What does that mean to have an AI in your organization, on your org charts, sitting in your team? We're going to see AI.
CEO, we have seen some tests where AI was a CEO, which didn't go super well, but this is only part of a development. Where in the future we will see it, and what do we do if my boss is now an AI, and how do I deal with it? And
exactly,
what are the values? And maybe that AI might, as we have seen with ChatGPT, is very friendly, always, sometimes incorrect friendly because it's trying to please you. They have now changed with the latest personalization that you can change it. But otherwise, also there's this huge question of trust. Who do you trust? And that brings me to my final topic in terms of trust. Deep fakes are all over the map. I have my own digital clone now, which I'm testing. You can clone your voice. You can clone yourself. This kind of conversation, we can see it's real. Because we have our backgrounds, we are in reality, and it's not yet that our clones could do the same, but it's only a matter of time. And you mentioned judge and legal systems. If you show videos, you cannot trust those videos anymore, which are brought forward as evidence.
Yeah.
So the biggest point about trust, again, how do you see people are creating trust in this world of where everything you can imagine can be fake?
Yeah. Well, I just refer to recently the ruling in Denmark, where every person's identity is their own IP. And I think that was a very interesting move. And I think we're going to see more countries moving in that direction. I spoke with some individuals here at the Forensics Institute, and they talked about the importance of us each being able to claim our own identity as our own IP. So, when it comes to that trust, the human dynamics are absolutely going to evolve in our organizations. I think we may see a reshaping of organizational structures. Agents are going to become embedded in teams, and that will affect how we collaborate, how we make decisions, how we spark innovation, even the office culture. How we build camaraderie, mentorship, and meaning has to be reimagined. And we're going to see AI delivering hyper-personalized career paths. But we have to ask really what is a fair and fulfilling workplace going to look like when AI is, let's use the word, your co-pilot. Who governs the agents and who's going to remain accountable? So it's not just the digital side, as you say. The trust piece here is immense. It's about that human transformation, and I think it's going to require empathy, a lot of responsibility, a lot of courage, because we're not just trying to adapt to the way that the future is meant to be. We have to shape it. No one's done this before, so we are here to build the trust, the resilience, and these capabilities. So I think a way to look at that is just a message here to leaders. This is not something we can delegate. CEOs can't delegate AI literacy. They must use the AI themselves. They have to understand its limitations, the possibilities and its risks. And I think that we need to be looking for the guidance of our leadership who are using AI daily to build new rhythms, to build new trusted systems and new models of the human AI teamwork. And that requires us to stay very curious, to be learn-it-alls instead of know-it-alls, because knowledge, it's endless. So we have to continue for the quest of learning instead of knowing, and be learn-it-alls in that case. Because I really see that the future is about humanity.
Thank you, Cara. I think this is a perfect closing line. You cannot delegate your responsibility as leader, so you cannot say AI is with IT, and the future is about humanity. Yeah. Thanks a lot for sharing your endless wisdom. I believe that we have to continue this conversation, and we can spend more hours and more insights of yours. Tapping into your wisdom would be fantastic. So let's create a future where we have humanity at the forefront, create impact for people, and let's get more people on board, also with the Edge of Tomorrow. Let's get people on board to share this excitement the two of us have and many other people have about the beauty of technology and what we can do with it for humanity. Thank you, Cara.
Thank you. And if I may just leave you with one final thought, that is,
yes.
where I would love to see us, go is to a world where the technology illuminates what humanity can't see, where we started our conversation today. And it's going to give us back the time to be fully, beautifully human.
Thank you. Bringing the light. Thank
Yes.
you.